Afghanistan is fighting on many different fronts these days, not just with the militants, but also against human rights abuses and massive corruption. My guest this week here in London is Abdullah, his country's chief executive, a role akin to that of Prime Minister. Why is there so much disunity in what is supposed to be a unity government? Abdullah, welcome to Conflict Zone.
Thank you.
One of the things that Western donors didn't expect to be paying for in Afghanistan was the frequent mistreatment and torture of prisoners by your police and security forces. Why is this still going on?
There might be problems still, which I will not deny it, but the situation has improved big deal. At least since we are in the government, the National Unity Government, we have taken strong measures. There wasn't any education about it prior to that. There wasn't any awareness, and laws were not designed to deal with those issues. But there might be malpractices somewhere, but it is not like we have been in a situation in this country which this was part of the government program. That's
yes, but you've been promising for years to do something about it. And last year, the UN assistance mission to your country reported the highest levels of torture in police custody since 2010. So rather than taking strong measures, the situation seems to be going back in reverse, getting worse and worse.
It's absolutely not right. It's not.
But they don't know what they're talking about, the UN mission.
The UN mission, what was the survey that they did in 2002 that now they're comparing it with 2017 or 16?
No, they said that the levels of torture we're seeing the highest levels since 2010. They were, eight in the last 8 years, highest levels. The Kandahar police was said to be responsible for the torture of 91% of detainees. Why do you not investigate the Kandahar police?
Some of these things are worth looking at, and we are having a good level of cooperation with the UNAMA, which is watching these things, and there are other organizations as well, including civil society, which has an oversight over these issues. It's not available with me today, but I can show you the report that the improvement is being admitted. And we are having discussions at the highest level, the president and...
So you're at odds with the UN assistance mission on this, because they cite...
if you look at the complete
credible
reports. If you look at the complete report, they will show you, they will give you the results of the reform which has been carried out as a whole, the improvement which is there. But whether there was that level of access in 2010 or prior to that, today they have access everywhere. And they
know the methods that you are using, which include forcibly pumping water into detainees' stomachs, crushing their testicles with clamps, suffocating them until they lose consciousness, and applying electric shocks to their genitals. Are you proud of this?
Nobody could be proud of this should it be the case, but
they don't make it up, do they? They don't make
but I can tell you, in this field, particular field that you started your interview with, there has been a lot of improvement. In the type of interactions between us, UNAMA, in their human rights section is such that they raise these issues with us directly. If we don't take action, then they will come back to us. And yes, we need their support. We need them to bring cases to us. But I can assure you that certain strong measures have been taken.
On the question of strong measures, Dr. Abdullah.
Like the way that yourself, with all respect, you are describing it, that this is going on throughout the country, and we are oblivious to that, and we don't pay any attention to that. That's...
Last year, you talk about strong measures. Last year, according to Human Rights Watch, you failed to prosecute a single senior official for torture. Is that how we're supposed to understand your strong measures against this practice?
you're talking about the rule of law?
I'm talking about prosecuting people for torture.
Due procedures. What is the senior level that we are talking about? These are all details which has to be seen and has to be discussed.
The Committee Against Torture last year pointed the finger at the Afghan National Police commander in Kandahar. They said he was widely suspected of complicity and, if not personal implication, in severe human rights abuses, including summary killings and the settlement of secret detention centres. Has this been investigated?
You yourself said suspected.
Yes.
If anybody is...
And there are widespread suspicions. His name keeps on propping up in human rights documents.
Based on that report. If anybody was cited as being suspected, do you think that we have a system that we can go through the suspicions of everybody against anybody? That's a different issue.
This is a key person in your security forces. This is a key figure in your security. Does that not bother you, that his name keeps on cropping up in human rights documents?
It does. But I can assure you that we are not learning about the things through media. We are talking directly to the people responsible and to the authorities as well as the UN officials in Kabul. When there is cases with evidence, we have taken it seriously.
4 months ago, Human Rights Watch called on you to investigate reports that your special forces summarily executed civilians in Kandahar province during the period of January 31st to February the 1st this year. During operations against the Taliban, they allegedly dragged some men from their homes and shot them. Is this something that you consider worth investigating?
Anything as such. There have been one or two.
It comes from a credible human rights source.
Yes, anything as such, or your previous reports, all of them are worth looking at, but to draw a picture that that's the overall situation in our country, that's what I'm challenging. There have been other cases also by our police or by our national army or special forces, but I can assure you that have been investigated. People are imprisoned as a result of that. People have been prosecuted as a result of that, and that's the reality.
So why does the Committee Against Torture talk about a climate of impunity in Afghanistan, a general climate of culture of impunity in Afghanistan, illustrated by the large number of alleged human rights violations involving senior state officials? This is from the UN Committee Against Torture.
The UN Committee Against Torture and their representatives in Kabul, UNAMA, we have very good level of cooperation. That's what I can assure you.
But you seem very complacent about all these things. And these are serious crimes.
I think before you accuse somebody in front of you, listen to him. Yeah, I'm listening to you, and our audience will make their judgment. All my life, I have fought for the rights of people in human rights, and I've made sacrifices, personal sacrifices, and millions of people have made sacrifices. And these are not the things that we will take it simply as such.
In January last year, your Attorney General ordered 9 guards employed by First Vice President Abdullah to answer questions about the abduction, illegal imprisonment and sexual assault on a rival politician, Ahmed Ishi. Dostum refused to allow his guards to be called in. Instead, they had to be interviewed in his compound. 7 of them were later convicted in absentia and sentenced to 5 years. By the end of last year, not a single one of them was in jail. That suggests that you do not have the power or the political will to enforce even the decisions of the courts in your country, doesn't it?
The same case that you are referring to, it has another angle to it as well. I will not get into details of it, but at the same time, you see that the first vice president is not in the country at the moment. Those people which are suspected of those crimes, they are not available to us. They are fugitives, and if we find them, they will be prosecuted.
The fact is, though, that your legal system is hopelessly compromised, isn't it? Freedom House said earlier this year that corruption among judges is extensive, with judges and lawyers often threatened and bribed by local leaders or militant groups. They called it an entrenched culture of impunity for the country's political and military power brokers. In other words, a situation where the powerful can get away with whatever they want to get away with.
In every single report by the UN as well as the relevant agencies, you will see approval of the reform which has been carried out in the past few years.
But not of the results.
Before bringing reforms in an institution, you are expecting results. It doesn't happen that way. There has been that culture embedded for many years, but you will see that in every single report. I put my credibility with it. The reform of the judiciary sector, the Prosecutor General's office throughout the country, and also as a government, we see it, the result with the people in our citizens which are approving it.
In February, on a visit to Parwan province, you admitted that the National Unity Government had failed to fulfill some of its commitments to the people. You said, let's tell the truth to the Afghan people and confess to our inabilities and shortcomings. I would like to tell the people that we failed to do for you what we hoped to do. If you've made a mess of it, why doesn't the government resign?
The point is that it was said in the context. There are areas that there have been shortcomings. For example, the parliamentary elections will be in a few months' time, parliamentary and district council elections. This election should have been held a year and a half back. That's a shortcoming.
That's the most serious. What about the human rights abuses and the corruption in the country? You promised to do better on that.
Nobody had promised that Afghanistan will be paradise as a result of 2 or 3 years of the unity government, but we have promised to take steps to make decisions, which we have done. Those decisions are not just in vain. It has yielded results. There has been improvement, it's if I say that work is done and don't bother about these things, that's not my case. That's not what I'm implying.
How is any of this helped by the political squabbling going on between you and President Ghani? I mean, that's at a time when you're facing a national emergency on so many fronts. This is supposed, as you say, to be a government of national unity, and you've been telling him he's unfit for office. How does this squabbling help the country?
You're referring to a statement of mine sometimes back, which I went
August 2016.
Which I went into details of what I meant about it. But show me one single government that there are no arguments, there are no debates, there are no discussions, there are no differences.
You said he didn't have the patience for any discussion with you at that time. Why does that make him unfit? Why did that make him unfit for the presidency?
You yourself had an opportunity to talk to President Ghani, and you have raised questions which was related to him directly. Now, if there are questions related to me, I'm obliged to, in respect for your audience, to address them. I would say that we came as a result of contested elections in order to save the country, in order to prevent a complete destabilization of the country. Unity government was formed. This is for the first time in our history that 2 contested groups are solving their differences through formation of a joint setup.
But your own MPs are criticizing you for squabbling with each other. You're squabbling about identity cards. You're facing a national emergency, a crisis where your very survival is in doubt, and you're fighting each other over identity cards.
MPs are there. They are representatives of the people. They should criticize us. We don't expect all of them to be in agreement with me or with President Ghani. That's normal. Our citizens have the right to criticize us. That I accept in your reference to my statement in Parwan. what we wish to achieve, we have not achieved it. But that does not imply that the unity government has not achieved anything.
Abdullah, is it any wonder that the people of Afghanistan have so little faith in their politicians with all the squabbling? Last November, there were opinion polls from the Asia Foundation which showed that members of parliament and ministers and the parliament as a whole received the lowest levels of confidence from the people in the 30 to 36% range, compared, of course, to the religious leaders and even the press, which received almost double the levels of confidence from people.
These will be judged in a thorough manner when the people go to the polling stations. And our focus, and that's my emphasis, our focus has to be on credibility of elections, the upcoming parliamentary elections and the district council elections and also presidential council
Almost
elections.
40% of your people want to leave the country.
No, who says that? If they want to leave, they will
same
leave.
poll.
They will be here.
It's not that easy. It's a considerable number are being turned away by the European Union if they manage to make it to
At the
Europe.
same time, last year, 700,000 people returned to the country. Compare that with the number of people which are leaving. The year before, over 1 million people returned back to the country, and they come as a choice. Yes, of course, they are there. There are challenges coupled with that return of refugees. We haven't been able to make them part of the development strategy, but we are supporting them, we are encouraging them, and we are creating enabling environment for them to rebuild their lives.
Perhaps
so look at two sides of this story.
Perhaps more would return if you dealt or began to deal meaningfully with corruption, one of the biggest problems that you face in Afghanistan. In January, the US Special Inspector General for Afghan Reconstruction, John Sopko, put the problem in context when he said, while President Ghani declared a national jihad on corruption, corruption is not just a problem for the system of governance in Afghanistan, it is the system of governance. You're powerless to do anything about these levels of corruption.
A lot has been done. A lot has been done in that respect. And with John Sopko, we have good level of cooperation. He raises concerns in certain areas about certain areas, and we take action about it. And that's what, unfortunately, we have inherited, and that's what we have to deal and address. And it's our responsibility to do it. And
how much action have you taken, though? I mean, in 2011, your country was the second most corrupt country in the world, according to Transparency International, and now it's the fourth. So it's moved up just 2 places in 7 years. Is that taking action?
That's not satisfactory, but that shows progress. That's not satisfactory at all. That's not ideal, far from it, but that shows progress.
All the signs are, Abdullah, that the security situation is going to get worse this year. You spoke out last month about the wave of recent attacks that have killed scores of people across the country. You don't have the troops to do the job, do you? You don't have sufficient troops to defend territory that you now control or even take back territory that you don't control.
A few years back, there were 150,000 international troops in Afghanistan doing the job, and they had the combat role.
And now there are 15,000.
There are 15,000, and they don't have the combat role. Their mission is to train, support, assist.
But that was always their mission, wasn't it?
No, they were in combat role earlier. The combat role came to an end before 2014, but they were in full combat role. They were doing the fighting. And our army, national army, and our police has taken responsibility. We have a high number of casualties as a result of this. And the conditions and circumstances will not evolve according to our wishes. We will deal with the circumstances with what we have.
But this war is unwinnable. 16 years of intervention by the Americans and other forces, and the Taliban are still there. You offered them unconditional recognition, you offered them ceasefire, you offered them even an office in Kabul. Why should they come and talk to you when they've managed to survive engagement with the most powerful army in the world and are still there, still fighting. Why should they talk to you?
If they are citizens of this country, and at the same time they are being killed in dozens, sometimes on daily basis.
They're prepared to take the casualties.
There is no doubt that they have taken casualties, but what they have achieved. They have an idea, they have an ideology, they want to fight for it politically, the door is open for them. They want to kill innocent people, that's nothing they will gain. Ulamas of Afghanistan a few days ago called upon us as the government as well as the Taliban to observe ceasefire. Our leadership, our government accepted that. The same day that ulamas were holding that meeting, there was a suicidal attack. These are the type of groups which have been fighting in the country and use terrorist methods. They are not unique to Afghanistan as well.
But look at it from their point of view. They have survived 16 years. Why come to the table now? They control almost 40% of your country.
Can they win the
Militant
war?
groups.
Can they win the war?
Can you win the war? Can you win the war is more important.
My question is, can they win the war in another 16 years? No.
But they may well not lose it. And you may. The important thing is you may not win it.
The point is that it is our responsibility as the government of Afghanistan, first of all, to do our best to protect our citizens, but the situation is as it is, unfortunately. At the same time, to keep the door open for talks and negotiations. And I have no doubt in my mind that, that there will be groups, there will be people who will see that this is an endless war and they should give up violence. And the door from our side should be kept open. It's not just us, it's not just Taliban, it's where they get support.
But the answer to you opening the door has been a huge wave of violence and bloodshed, hasn't it?
Yes.
So you miscalculated. By leaving the door open, you thought somebody would walk through it, sit down at a table and negotiate with you. They're not going to, are they?
It hasn't happened so far. Give me one example that the last soldier killed and then the war ended. It has not happened anywhere in the world. There is no cases, classic or modern. They have shown their utter irresponsibility towards the people and towards the fate of the country. They continue to do so. This will be very unfortunate for us, for the people of Afghanistan, but I'm sure that there will be people who will think otherwise when they see the chances.
And when the next presidential elections come around again next year, will you be standing? Will you be standing again? You said in February it was time to tell the truth to the Afghan people. What successes, if you are going to stand, what successes can you point to which would make people want to vote for you?
I haven't decided yet, and also I haven't decided to start my campaign while I'm here in London to say what I will do for the people. But I can promise that at any circumstances, I will be dedicated to the cause of our people and well-being of our people under any circumstances.
There's still well-being to be had among your people? You have a population where 50% is under 15.
Yes.
You have 3.5 million children who are not going to school. More than 85% of them are girls. What kind of well-being do you offer in this country?
Millions of people today under these difficult circumstances, younger generation, young and old, boys and girls, are rebuilding their lives, are contributing to the well-being of themselves as well as the country. It's not that it's you're talking about a massacre field and people are pushed into those fields.
I'm talking about people who can't have a future, 3.5 million kids, unless they get an education.
Unfortunately, there have been times that no single girl was allowed education, and our people have gone through that as well, like only 2 decades back. Today, still millions of people are going there. These statistics, it helps us to focus on those areas, but percentages are all disputed. Yes, in that area that Taliban created insecurity, then they stop people from going to school. The point is that even in those areas and throughout the country, the main priority of the people of Afghanistan, first one will be security, the second one is education, and education for boys and girls. And at the same time, that's where I say that Taliban are already defeated. Their ideals are rejected, their ideology is rejected, the fact that the way of life is rejected by the absolute majority of the people of Afghanistan.
It's a good push. I wonder if the people are going to buy it.
If the people wouldn't buy it, they will not defend. They will not send their sons and daughters in the battlefield to defend the system, to protect the people, and to continue to be in the high moral ground, offering peace and defending the country.
Abdullah, it's been a pleasure having you on Conflict, sir.
Pleasure
Thank you
was
very
mine.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.